Everybody, everybody, man, I got a heavy hitter on the channel today. He got props. He ready. He gonna come straight, no chaser on the strong inspirations channel. You know, I'm bringing this Black history at you. You know, I'm so happy he on my channel. I don't know what to do because I'm telling you, we bring it to you. So come on, folks, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notifications bell, and tell somebody about strong inspirations, because that's what we do. And if you got 75 minutes somewhere along the line, today, tomorrow, or whenever, come on, watch my movie. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I put 3 years of my heart and soul in this film to show you how slaves learned how to read and write, how they went to college, what racists did to destroy Black business districts. And then I named Black millionaires in the 1800s, slaves who owned their own business, slaves who used their money, their profits from their business to buy their freedom. And I interviewed about maybe 15, 16 people whose family owned the business in the early 1900s. I've been to 40 cities showing that, and it's on Amazon. So you can stream it on Amazon or get the DVD. It's called Business in the Black. I had so much fun with that. I wrote the book, Black Business Book. It's got over 200 facts. I mean, I cover a little bit of everything in this book, just a tad of it. I don't give you no commentary. I just give you the facts. And then, because some of them you're going to want to learn a little more, you're not going to believe because it's so amazing what we accomplished. I give you the link to where I found the fact in the back of the book. I number the facts so you can say, hey, man, did you read fact 57, fact 99? It's called Black Business Book. It's also on Amazon and on my website. Check out my website, Inspirations by Strong, because everything I do is called Strong. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's what we are, strong people. So come on now. Oh man, I'm so excited this brother decided to come on the channel. I called him a couple times. He said, I'm busy, man. I got things I'm doing down here. But he made time for us. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let's roll.
Yes, my name is Griffin Lotson. I'm a 7th generation Gullah Geechee. For those of you that not familiar with Gullah Geechees, is what we call now African Americans. My ancestors, of course, 7 generations back, came from Africa, and we settled here in America. There's about 4 states that's directly involved. Mostly familiar with 40 acres and a mule. Well, from that piece of legislation going back to President Lincoln time, we mimic almost that, which simply means that after the Civil War, a special meeting was held in Savannah, Georgia. Now that we are free, as free as we say it, now what? We own nothing. So legislation came about that they would give us some land from the ocean shores, every island that you know of, Hilton Head in Savannah, St. Simon, Sea Islands, Jekyll Islands, all of the islands headed from Pinter County, North Carolina, straight on down to St. Augustine, Florida. We own all of the waterfront. Lived very shortly. Lincoln got shot and he died, and it was rescinded. So that's the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Quarter, from the water all the way up inland, 30 miles. So now you know a little bit more about Gullah Geechee, and we'll share more with this interview.
Okay,
Yes.
well, let me ask you now. Hold on. You say seven generations deep. You go back. You traced your family to Africa?
Yes, I travel frequently to Africa right now. I am seeking dual citizenship with Sierra Leone, West Africa, even as I speak, talking with government officials, which I've worked a lot with them. Some of my ancestors, fortunately, through my research, are recorded. Lorenzo Dow Turner, we like to call him the godfather of the African American linguistic, And some of my ancestors he actually have in writing with his own handwriting, and he recorded. So that rich history has been passed down, and I spent too much time researching my family. So we have all of this documented in writing, and some of it back in the 30s when some of them were still alive from the enslaved days. They actually sat down, and Lorenzo Dow Turner, an African American, recorded some of the former slaves that were yet alive in the early 30s. So yes, we've traced a lot of our ancestral root back to West Africa.
So, I mean, you didn't trace it like through that ancestry.com or DNA.com. Did that help you? Is that how you did it?
You can use a combination of all of the above. I usually call it going down the rabbit hole. You might hear about something and then you look it up and then you match it, because at the level that I work at, I am an international goodwill ambassador. I have worked with some foreign government in trying to let people know more about the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Commission, which I serve on now, which is I'm the vice chairman of the whole federal government. We're vetted by every president, starting with President Ford. Then, of course, it came right on through up to Barack, through the former president, and now the new president. We all are vetted before we can receive the position that I'm on. So, having said that, we have to make sure we have facts. And for me, I just can't rely on one resource. For me, I do the history books. I do through the also through records that you can get from the National Archives, and also from some recordings. And for me, I go to the motherland to tie off the research that I've been doing in America.
So before we get into the Gullah Geechee conversation, let's say, because you blowing my mind, man. Oh my God, everybody, come on, he blowing our mind, he blowing my mind. What you can go back, do you see some paperwork that is that in Africa, like so when they had the people, they captured them in Africa, did they do some kind of paperwork to have their names or something like that? Is that how you can, is there some kind of documentation to say, okay, your name is Kunta Kinte, and I mean, they changed the name when they got to America, but they put Kunta Kinte on some paperwork and then they could go back. Is that how you can be so, you can say the paperwork is so reliable? How does that work, I guess? Sure.
Yeah, some of it can be traced that way. And keep in mind, this was considered property in America. And here in America, if you own a car, a house, some land, almost anything of value, there is some records somewhere. We were considered as property,
Right.
not as human beings like some of the Europeans. We were not considered as a full human being, which most of us know. So from that, there was pretty accurate records. And through some of those slave owners, they kept records and wrote memoirs. They wrote letters to their loved ones. And some of these archival documents have been tracked down.
Oh,
So
I
some
got you.
of it you can.
I
Some
got
of
you.
it's lost forever.
Yeah.
Some
Now
of it,
I
most
heard
of it.
that the slave owners had to pay a tax on their slaves, right? Did you know
Yeah,
that?
it was as I said, it was property. So if you own property, you had to pay taxes on your land. And slave shuttles, as they call them, yes, they were considered property, and you had to keep very accurate records. So an horrific thing is being enslaved for history, as you and many of your viewers, millions worldwide, because of the internet, that can listen into your program. Believe it or not, there were very accurate records that were
Mm.
kept by the enslaved uh, for good reasons and for bad reasons. I'm going to give one in particular, 1822 Gullah Jack. Okay, we know about Gullah Jack because it was a court case, which in my research, I thought that was the first time the word Gullah was mentioned in America. But through a mutual friend of mine, a colleague, Heather Hodges, did some research, and I saw on one of the old posters when they were selling enslavement, she helped me. She gave it for another reason. I said, I thought it was 1822, but I didn't know, and I continued research. She found out one of the flyers that was out in 1870s, I think it was. And I was like, oh my God, there's the word Gullah. So
Okay.
we
Well,
know it goes back. Yes.
since you since you said that, what is Gullah? Where does Gullah come from? What is Gullah? What does Gullah
Well,
mean?
it is. I'm finishing a book now called Gullah Geechee 101. And basically, the $64,000 question, and you're asking it, most people ask the same thing once they heard a little bit about Gullah and Geechee. They said, well, what is Gullah? What is Geechee? And
Right.
what's the difference? So we'll give you just a surface of that.
Right.
When you speak of Gullah, if you were in Africa, they would call it Gula. And if you're in America, they would call it Gullah. So I like to tell people through the years, the translation changed from Gula in Africa, which they still pronounce it Gula, and we pronounce it Gullah. So having said that, it's a group of individuals, just like we say African Americans, Jamaicans. The Gullahs is a special group of people because of isolation, living on these islands. A lot of them lived and died on the islands. They may have lived to be 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old, and never set foot off of a place called like Sapelo or Hilton Head because there was no bridges. So they developed a uniqueness. And the uniqueness in the Gullah and the Geechees, so we're called Geechees also, is the fact that we were able to retain most of our African cultural ways from Africa and tied it into what we live and how we lived in America. We talk like some people say funny, and I'll stop there and then you can ask them a question. We say things like, come y'all just y'all that day, which sounds a little weird, but it is English to us. And of course, they think we from the islands, man,
Right.
Jamaica, man.
Right.
And that's the dialect. But you have to believe some of those same Jamaicans were dropped off also originally from Africa. They call it the diaspora or that triangle that came from Africa and stopped off in various spots, including Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, and here in America.
Right. Okay, so your let's say your people come from Africa.
Yeah.
That you can trace, and they landed on they were on a ship, and the ship, and they came to a Gullah Geechee area, one of the islands.
Yeah, we call it Gullah Geechee now, but it was, of course, not even America yet. If you're going to go back to 1619, if you want to go way back, I think it was 15 in the 1500s when they first came over. If you're going to count that, it still wasn't America. So the name Gullah was a designation after enslavement, and people were transported in this area. And because of our uniqueness of how we retain most of our culture, it's been given the name Gullahs and Geechee because this was Gullah Jack. He was known in the community, sort of a doctor, a leader, what we call a root worker, a root doctor type of thing. And history put it in there because it was a case of insurrection. So great that it was history, but unfortunately, they just wanted to be free, and they devised a plan to get free so they can go back to Africa, be free like everyone else.
Yeah.
And a court case came up. So that's the good news, is that I'm glad that it actually went to the court case, so we might have never known in history about Gullah Jack. So to shorten that, basically, no, it wasn't called we dropping them off in Gullah land. No, it wasn't that way. They just dropped them off in Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, late after the transportation of slaves from West Africa was stopped. You have the Wanderer, which is in the state of Georgia. That was an illegal shipment, stopped in 1808, and they did it like in 1859, snuck it to Georgia. Yes.
So now in your family, where did your great grandfathers grow up? In what city that would be today?
Okay, what it would be called today, I use this short phrase and allow me to dramatize it because it's that. There was James Napoleon Rogers, an enslaved individual. He lived in Harris Neck, Georgia. He had a son by the name of James Rogers. His nickname, a fancy name they would call it, was James Monkey Rogers. And James Monkey Rogers had a son by the name of Leon Rogers. And Leon Rogers had a nephew by the name of Griffin Lotson, which is on this telecast over the worldwide internet now. So
Okay.
all of these things is documented when they
Okay.
were about when they were born, when they died, the year, and they lived in McIntosh County, Georgia, in particular. But Harris next for the enslaved uh, uh, James Napoleon Rogers. I did a special BBC World News report last year about this family lineage, which is recorded, which can be documented. So a lot of
Okay.
you can do your research. You can learn a lot. Takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay. So now your family was raised in the South Carolina area. Did your ancestor he was a slave. He got his
Yes.
freedom and had kids.
Yes.
Did he leave from that corridor, or did he stay? And is most of your family stayed in that area? Did some end up going to New York once slavery was over, or they all kind of stayed in that same vicinity?
Yes, all of the above, and I'll try to explain it a little bit. Keep in mind, we came here to America. We had no choice in that.
Right,
My enslaved had no choice,
right.
so we were enslaved here, and a lot of the children were birthed into enslavement. Keep in mind, it's a different person that were brought here by folks, the Kutakintes, as you call it, and then those that were birthed into it. They were taught by their parents and grandparents how they were home in Africa, and probably heard those beautiful stories, but also they knew nothing about that. And then they were birthed on these plantations. So the mindset and the attitudes were sometimes very different. That's why Kuta Kinte had help and tried to tell him, just calm down because you're not going back to Africa. But he was a warrior. And he fought a good fight, and he finally gave up under the pressure. I shouldn't say give up, gave
Yeah.
in.
Where were you raised? What kind of high school or grade school did you go to? Um, do you have brothers and sisters? That kind of thing.
I was born and reared in a little place called Crescent, Georgia, and Carnegie. And when I graduated from high school, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I lived there for 12 years. And it's that calling to go back home, just as the Africans wanted to go back to Africa and the great stories of the flying African. And some did make that pilgrim trip back one way or another. So for me, the calling was to come back. So I moved back to Georgia in 85 in the last century. And here I am now still in Georgia because it's home and I feel freer and better in my hometown of
I
other
got
Gullah
you.
Geechees.
Do you and you got your doctorate, don't you?
My brother has his doctorate, and I often tell people that between him and I, we have 7 college degrees. And I often comically say, I won't tell you how many I have, but he has 6 of them, and he's a Gullah Geechee. Yes, he has
Wow.
a doctorate in that area. I'm just have my doctorate in religious studies and also my degree in psychology.
Wow. And so let me ask you this. I heard of a story because I've been to the Penn Center.
Yes, very
I've heard of a
famous.
story where there was a slave ship that came through that area and the slaves revolted on the ship, maybe killed a lot of the white, people, what have you, and they went off into the woods. And when they did that, the white people didn't go get them, and that's the formation of the Penn Center in that district. Is that kind of this? Is that some? Do I have that right?
Some of it's a mixture of several stories there. It sounds like you're talking a little bit about Ebo's landings. The Penn Center was derived, Penn Normal is the name that they call it. It was one of the first place to be liberated. The Yankees came Fort Sumter area, in Penn Center area, St. Helena Island, and they set up a school there. And so we're in places like Georgia and other places before the Civil War was ended, we were deep in enslavement. And so this was one of the places that they came and conquered. And so therefore they had a taste of some freedom before the rest of us in the deep South. Okay,
I got you.
a big myth is that most people think that all African American Negroes, as they called them back then, were enslaved. No, that's a myth. There was a lot of free people. They were called indentured servants at first, and the if you want to talk about the 1619 project, the White Lion or whatnot, they were indentured servant. I call it, this is a nice way of saying you still a slave,
Right.
but it was a nicer term to use. Oh no, you are an indentured servant. No, you're not a slave. You're an indentured servant. But while you're an indentured servant, guess what? You're going to have to do what we tell you to do. But you're not a slave. You're an indentured servant. But you got to do what we tell you to do for free.
So, but down and so they developed that school, the Penn Center,
Yes.
and they got that church there, the
Yes.
brick church, so on and so forth. And are there other schools like the Penn Center where they were for free blacks
Uh,
along that corridor?
Yes, yes, it is. One is similar to people that were set free earlier before the war was over with in 1865. And so you're talking like 1862, 1863. Keep in mind, as they go through each place, even though the war was not over, a lot of them were set free because a lot of the slave owners, they did what I guess for survival, the heck with this. They went back up to Philadelphia and wherever they lived up north and abandoned their plantations. Now you know how we have the 40 acres and a mule that most people are
I got you.
familiar with. I
I
use
got
that term because most people can identify with it. They were absentee landlords, and when the Yankees came in the Civil War, they took off. I mean, the only people who were left were the former enslaved people. Now they were free. You keep in mind, they were all free, and some of them received their freedom earlier because the troops stayed in those areas.
you.
So
I
they
got you.
started establishing, I guess, for a reason to show that we're really going to win this war, and you better not try to come in and take these islands, a little small island. And to get to the island, you had to go through hell now because the cannons are set up. So they enjoyed some freedom ahead of time. Okay.
I got you. So I'm sure you might laugh at this, when the slaves got their freedom and the big house the owner left, they went in there and they partied and drank and had a good time. I can imagine that was a
Oh,
festive moment.
oh yes, they were. It was theirs. Keep in mind, I feel all the 13 made it. Well, what are we gonna do? And like I tell
Yeah.
people, it's like the war is over. Yes, we're free. Yes, hallelujah. And then you start thinking we're free. Okay, we're free.
Yeah.
We don't have a home. The land that we don't own that. How far is this freedom gonna take us? Because we know we can't go too far. Because right after that, a lot of the whites were still there, and not the Jim Crow, but the other movements of the clans and everything was beginning to start growing,
Yeah.
and you couldn't hide yourself because the color of your skin gave
Yeah.
you away. So now you're free, but what do I have? And then you think, I really don't have anything. So partying did happen for a little while, but they didn't own that. They didn't own it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't own anything. So then the smile comes off of your face, and now you have to figure out and get all the help you can so that you can live like some of your cousins, which had their freedom. Okay. So America
As we
was
come
messed
to
up.
a close, is there somebody that was in that area who, a former slave person who had the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm gonna help my people come together, my free people come together, we're going to network, we're going to build a town, we're going to become self-sufficient. is there that kind of thing? Is there somebody who has that wherewithal to help the blacks so that they can have something of their own, so that they don't have to now become sharecroppers and again bow down to the white guy?
Yes, if you want to go, let's just deal with the area you just talked about, St. Helena Island.
Right.
You have Robert Smalls, uh, that was enslaved, stole the boat.
Yeah, I got that story in my book,
Yeah.
everybody. I got the
So
story in the book.
you can talk more about that. So these individuals after that, and of course, more famous one like Frederick Douglass, same thing, enslaved, came back and wind up going to the White House and giving one of the on Independence Day a great speech,
Right.
blasting out the Europeans, saying about independence. There ain't nothing good about this for me and
Right.
my people. A lot of even my ancestors and all children got involved, and they were elected officials all the way to the top. See, people don't
Yeah.
know there was, you had senators and congressmen and representatives and states, powerful people that were magistrates, and then all hell broke out with the Jim Crow, and then you got the
Yeah.
clans, and they figured a way to get us where you can't win an election anymore, and then they fix it years later where you couldn't even vote. See, most
Yeah.
people don't,
Right. Right.
they don't know what you and I know, that no, we were in high position. We were in
Right.
high cotton country, and then
Yeah.
and America changed, and all of that
Yeah.
was taken away again.
So everybody listen to this. This is the way the story goes. So we slaves, we get our freedom, don't know what to do, and then some of us start coming up with something to do. We work the land, and some of us learn how to read and write. Some of us go off to school. Some of us become ministers. Some of us then go back and we help each other, and we get elected officials, and we speak very well and all that other stuff.
Yeah, you said it about perfect. This is the real history. You know, we can do the cosmetic version and say, "Whoa, we were all slaves," and "Whoa, what they did to us," and we leave off the narrative that you are saying. So I'm true to history. I want to tell it all, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it's the truth or not. So I'm a heavy hitter, but also the reality, it all was wrong and all was evil, should have never happened. But we, some of us, for all kinds of reasons, greed, fear, we got involved in it, and not for good reasons. Okay.
Oh, hold on. What are you saying
So
there? Some of us, some black people?
yes, even from Africa, if you go back and do the history, it wasn't a whole bunch of white folks went over there and said, "Okay, I'm going to gather all you guys up," and all we did, because we were so ignorant, well, they just taking cousin Bill and Mary, and well, they white, and I guess ain't nothing we can do. No, no, we were strong leaders, kings and queens. We fought the system. But then a lot of us, what we know in America, we call them Uncle Toms. And some of the leaders were looking out for themselves. Of course, they were like, "Okay, you're going to give me what?"
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. I know where you're
yeah.
going with that. Yeah, I
So
know where you're
those are
going with
the
that.
part of history we don't like to talk
I
about.
got you.
But you got to realize that we did not invented it. Some of us bought into it,
Yeah, I
and
got you.
but not all bought
Yeah,
into it.
yeah, I got
So
you.
yeah.
I got you. Now, last question: is there for my viewers? Is there a festivals, one more than one festival that people can come to celebrate and learn more? Uh, I think I even noticed that you sing in a choir or something like that. Is there some activities like we can come to over the summer that you all do that we can be a part of and help support the cause in some ways?
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning, and I'll call it the shameless plug for what I do. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily a
please.
choir. It's the Geechee Gullah Ring Shouters. It's a part of the culture that ties us directly back to West Africa, and it's called a ring shout. And we perform at most of the festivals, and we just did a great celebration in West Africa. For nearly 300 years. We brought the ring shout back to West Africa, and nearly 1,000 people at an auditorium. We worked together with that history, tying it back to West Africa. Here in America, there's lots of festivals. In Georgia, where I live, you do have the Sapelo Island We're in a very prestigious island when it comes to the history of the Gullahs and the Geechees and African American. They lived there. They toiled the land over there, and a lot of people like to travel there. They have a cultural festival. You have what you say, the Penn Center, one of the largest festivals, and then you have the St. Helens Island where they have the festival there at the Penn Center each year. We also have the Beaufort Festival, the original festival that happened in Beaufort County and South Carolina. They're some of the largest. People come from all over the world, and tens of thousands show up. Movie stars even show up to these festivals. The Manhattans, I happen to be on the same stage with the Manhattans. Good Times with Thelma. We all at the same festival performing.
Oh,
Our
man,
group
that's
is them.
beautiful.
Yeah. So yes, there's a lot of festivals. I'll be remiss if I don't mention the one on St. Simon Island, Georgia, where the Ebos landing, which part of the story you said about the Ebos, they got off the slave ship. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. So before they be in bondage, they walked off the slaves in their shackles and drowned themselves on St. Simon Island, called Ebos Landing. Beyonce and others now give tribute to that through their songs. So yes, there's quite a few festivals, the Sea Island Festival, St. Simon Island, and there's many, many others, but I named those off the top of my head.
Okay, well, we're going to put the names of the festivals and the websites in the description on this video. Is there a question that I didn't ask you that comes to mind, or last closing remarks?
Well, the only closing remarks I would say, and it's always more, they can feel free to contact me through your site. And but the fact that this culture was almost extinct, was dying out. And it took an act of Congress. You have people joking and say, oh, it'll take an act of Congress to make this happen. It literally took an act of Congress, which I think the year was 2006, where Congress voted through Congressman Clyburn to help keep this alive. And it's called the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Commission in the Cultural Heritage Area. And when you think of Niagara Falls, I use that because most people are familiar with Niagara Falls. That's a national heritage area. The Gullah Geechee Cultural National Heritage Area is equal to Niagara Falls, but just not as much known or as popular. But we share the same lineage as a national heritage area, and more people are finding out about us. And we need your audience to keep it alive.
Yeah.
We want them to go on that internet and say, what is Gullah? What is Geechee? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
We want them to look and see and learn and help keep this culture alive. We were the people that made America wealthy to rice, indigo, cotton, and sugarcane, believe it or not. And we worked for free because we were enslaved.
Oh man, can I put you on the spot here, brother? Because you're a nice guy. You might go for this. Can you give me a just a little bit of song?
This song, which goes back to the time when we were enslaved and when we were escaping. Of course, you get in the water so that the dogs couldn't trace you or smell your scent. And it goes in that ritual of the spirituals. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Wow, everybody, brother, man, that was good. You sound good. That's a #1 hit, because I knew the song. I didn't know really what it tied to. Thank you so very much for coming on Strong Inspirations. I really appreciate it. We're gonna blast this out. We're gonna let people know about it. You know, that's our charge. We're gonna put the websites. Stay strong, man. Stay safe. Stay on your grind. I appreciate you. We appreciate you for doing all you're doing. Everybody, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notifications button. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations, because that's what we do. We come on strong. Thank you so very much for being on the channel.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.